Discover the amazing truth. My husband faked cancer, only to marry his lover in 30 shocking days. Julie stared at the headline on her phone, a jumble of emotions spiraling within her. It felt like a sick joke, an illusion that had become her reality. Her husband, Tom, who had been living the role of the loving spouse battling terminal cancer, was in fact playing her a puppet master, twisting the strings of her life. In a suburban home complete with a white picket fence, companions in their dazzling careers, they had appeared like the ideal couple. But now, it was as if she had stepped onto a stage for a grotesque performance. Memories of their life flooded her mind, reminders of the family they once were. Julie's thoughts raced. Did she truly know Tom? Had she been blind to the cracks beneath their perfect lives? The ache of uncertainty gnawed at her, threatening to drown her in despair. The children were so young, Lily, only 7, and Ben, just 4. They deserved a solid foundation, an unwavering truth. But her instincts as a nurturing mother collided with the reality of betrayal. Do I protect them from their father's treachery? Or do I expose what he has done, shattering their childhood innocence? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With every passing second, the weight of Tom's deception sank deeper into her soul. She could feel the muscles in her jaw tighten, a flicker of indignation igniting within her. The truth was a sleeping giant threatening to consume her. That evening, her fingertips brushed lightly against the cold touch of his phone, heart racing. What else would she find? She had thought about confronting him but hesitated. The very idea of it stirred a tumult of fear and anxious energy, her breathing rapid, nerves taut. If he was capable of this, what else was he hiding? Would he fly into a rage, tearing the family they had built apart? Yet another thought gripped her each moment she delayed. Empowered him. The impending dread of his wedding on the 30th day bore down on her like a crushing avalanche. As the clock ticked, her resolve shifted from defensiveness to an unwavering determination. She had to expose Tom, not just for her benefit, but for the sake of her children. Lily and Ben deserved to know the truth about their father, even if it devastated them. Julie's visceral need for justice battled with her instinct to shield her family from chaos. Do I confront him and rip apart our lives? Or do I keep quiet, bearing the burden alone? With clenched fists, she steeled herself for the inevitable revelation, knowing deeply that this chapter of her life was only beginning. The key to her future categorized evidence in her mind, whispering that every stealthy discovery crept her closer to reclaiming her narrative, bright but clouded with uncertainty. Just as Julie took a breath, preparing for a fateful confrontation with the man she no longer recognized, the tangled mess he created threatened to engulf her. Would she dare to rip off the mask of his deception? And then, like a glimmering shadow, the truth loomed, what would remain of her heart once the illusion shattered. Julie sat on the edge of her bed, legs swinging restlessly, her heart thudding in a rhythm that matched the frantic pace of her thoughts. Each passing moment felt weighted with anticipation, the silence of the house amplifying her inner turmoil. She glanced at the clock. Time was slipping away, and so was her resolve to confront Tom. The facade of their life together had crumbled, and the aftermath was a jigsaw puzzle missing too many pieces. The thoughts of her children flooded her mind, their innocent laughter echoing down the hallway. Could she really expose Tom's deceit without risking their sense of security? The nurturing instinct within her fought valiantly against the growing fire of indignation that urged her to take action, to reclaim agency over her own life. She needed to figure out who she truly was amidst the chaos. Julie pushed herself up and paced the room, stepping around the scattered toys that had forgotten their place in a now fractured home. The walls once felt like a protective embrace, but now they seemed to close in, echoing memories of laughter and warmth transformed into bitterness. This stark reality could not last. Suddenly, her gut tightened with determination. She reached for her phone and went straight to Tom's last messages. Texts, photos, a web of deceit hidden beneath casual exchanges. Information like a slow-moving tide crept back into her mind, the subtle changes in his behavior, the hushed phone calls in another room, the unexplained absences. The dots began to connect, revealing a portrait of deceit that had been expertly concealed. She took a deep breath, a flicker of anger erupting within her. The realization struck she had been a victim to a well-crafted play in which she had trusted the wrong actor. But now, she would not allow herself to be an unwilling spectator any longer. She was not only fighting for herself, she was fighting for her children's understanding of right and wrong. They were too young to understand betrayal, yet she had no choice but to confront the truth head-on. With every keystroke, she began documenting her findings. The cold light of the screen illuminated each horrifying revelation, transforming them into tangible evidence that would not only give her strength but motivate her to strategize. The urgency of the impending wedding date loomed like a thunderstorm on the horizon. She needed a plan, a way to reclaim her narrative not just as a diligent mother, but as a woman who had been wronged. As she meticulously displayed the evidence before her, a revelation struck: she needed allies. Friends, family, and perhaps even professional advisors. Surely, she couldn't orchestrate this unraveling alone. With newfound resolve, she picked up the phone and started reaching out. "Can I meet with you?" she asked a close friend, her tone dripping with uncharacteristic urgency. "I need your help." As they discussed her situation over coffee, Julie felt the burden of isolation begin to lift. Each word shared chipped away at the wall of silence that Tom had built around her. She felt empowered, the flame of hope igniting steadily within her, as she began forming the pieces of a plan. Her feelings fluctuated. Yes, she was still scared, still uncertain, but there was something powerful in taking the first step toward justice. Finally, she ended the call with her friend, her heart racing from a mixture of adrenaline and fear. This was only the beginning. Her mind shifted. The stakes had escalated. Her life had turned into an active battlefield. The confrontation was inevitable, and she was preparing for what came next. What if the truth of Tom's deception was only the beginning, and then would the truth about herself also reveal itself alongside it? Julie could almost taste the reckoning that awaited her, a collision of fears and revelations on the horizon. Did she have the strength to face Tom, or would the mask slip deeper into something more dangerous? The clarity she sought was unfolding, but the heart of the matter remained. Would she uncover the astonishing truth that lay within herself in the process? Julie stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, the fluorescent light casting a harsh glow on her features. The woman looking back at her seemed foreign, a figure cloaked in uncertainty but burgeoning with an undeniable resilience. The last few days had been a whirlwind of emotions, and her heart pounded with trepidation and unquenchable resolve. This confrontation with Tom would be a test not just of her marriage but of her entire being. She took a moment to breathe deeply, allowing the air to fill her lungs and steady her racing thoughts. As she exhaled, she reminded herself of the support she had begun to gather. Each call, each coffee shared with loved ones fortified her spirit. She was no longer alone, and that knowledge shaped her newfound identity, a woman rising from the ashes of betrayal. The thought of a direct confrontation with Tom electrified her, a jolt of adrenaline coursing through her veins. For too long, she had been the silent partner, discounted and disregarded. But the woman who stood before the mirror now was equipped with knowledge and a network of allies. It was time to reclaim her narrative. With her heart set on confronting her husband, Julie pulled out her phone again, scrolling through the messages she had collected. Each piece of evidence served as a reminder that the plummet into turmoil was not her fault. The blame rested firmly on Tom's shoulders. There was no more running from the truth. Ignorance had protected her, but now awareness propelled her forward. She needed to approach this unyielding storm with strategy, not just raw emotion. The moments leading up to the confrontation drew nearer, and each tick of the clock resonated louder in her mind. Julie made her way downstairs, the familiar sounds of her children playing drawing her forward. She stopped to admire their joy, so blissfully unaware of the storms brewing in the adult world. but she had to ensure their foundation remained firm, that their innocence wouldn't be sacrificed for Tom's deceit. Gathering her strength, she positioned herself in the living room, seated calmly on the couch while she rehearsed her thoughts. Julie would present her evidence clearly and confidently, making sure Tom would not be able to refute her claims. She wanted to ensure he understood the ramifications of his actions, both in terms of their marital bond and the implications for their children. Every word would be precise, laden with meaning and purpose, but the swirling doubts crept into her mind, asking whether she was strong enough for what was to come. Would confronting Tom reveal a truth she wasn't ready to face? Would he deny the evidence and manipulate her feelings once again? Yet, the very thought of living under the shadow of his lies one more day felt unbearable. Walking away was no longer an option. She was poised for battle. Just then, her phone buzzed with a message from her best friend, an encouraging reminder that she wasn't alone. "You've got this, Julie. You're stronger than you think," it read. The simple message was like a warm embrace, wrapping her in a cocoon of companionship. She might be uncertain, but she would not be defined by anyone's deceit but her own choices. The door creaked open, and in walked Tom, his face concealing nothing yet radiating confidence. As he approached her, she steeled her resolve, sensing this moment held more than just personal stakes. It was a turning point, a revelation of who she could become, regardless of the outcome. "Julie," he said, attempting his usual charm, but she interrupted him, her voice stronger than she felt. "We need to talk." The scent of confrontation hovered in the air, laden with anticipation. The moment had come, and with it, the unknown realms of truth awaited. Would she emerge empowered, or would hiding fragments of herself be a lingering consequence of questioning his deceit? In the depths of her heart, she felt the answer waiting, just beyond reach. But would she have the courage to seize it? The tension in the room thickened as Tom's smile faltered, his expression shifting from playful to cautious. Julie's heart raced, her pulse echoing in her ears like a drum signaling the onset of war. "What do you want to talk about?" he asked, leaning against the doorframe, exuding an air of reluctance. "About us," she began, her voice steady despite the turmoil within. She hadn't anticipated this moment would feel so monumental, yet here she stood, on a battleground forged from her own pain and betrayal. "About your lies, Tom." Each word emerged carefully, as if she were laying one stone upon another to build the fortress of her resolve. He shifted, the casual charm slipping into something more defensive. "What lies?" His tone indicated disbelief, even confusion. He was already reaching for a facade, desperately attempting to weave a narrative that would shield him, and she could see it flickering behind his eyes. Julie drew in a breath, her fingers tightening around the evidence clasped in her hands. The texts, the calls, the constant hidden messages. She nodded toward the envelope she had prepared. It felt heavy, each piece of paper inside reverberating with truth and consequence. "You didn't think I would find out? That I wouldn't see the patterns?" Tom's demeanor morphed from demure to incredulous, a mask of arrogance masking the crack of his facade. "Julie, you're overreacting. I can explain." The instinctual push to protect oneself manifested before her, and she realized he might think charm and denial could still save him. "That's what I want, Tom. I want you to explain. Take responsibility for what you did." The intensity of her own declaration hung like a taut string in the air. She could feel the internal barriers she had upheld for years beginning to crumble, replaced by an urgency to expose the truth for what it was. "Come on, let us not do this now. This isn't the time or place," he said, voice dropping to soften the impact, a tactic she recognized as manipulation. "The time is now," she shot back, her assertiveness surprising even herself. "Nothing changes if you keep sidestepping the truth. Your choices have consequences." The weight of this moment drilled into her, a reminder that she was no longer going to be a passive participant in the tale of her own life. Tom inhaled sharply, his expression shifting from offense to something resembling guilt, a fleeting shadow on an otherwise painted smile. "I swear it's not what you think. I can fix things." "Fix things?" The phrase echoed inside her, igniting a memory of the countless times she had clung to hope only to be let down. Each time she hoped for reconciliation had merely reinforced his sense of power over her. The truth cascaded through her mind like a blurred film reel, outlining the years of her existence forged in devotion only to meet the reality of deceit. With raw clarity, she realized that standing firm wasn't about fixing him. It was about liberating herself. It was about fixing things, she asserted, her resolve crystallizing. This is about me and the life I deserve. I'm not here to sustain your narratives anymore. His silence spoke volumes. The bravado began to falter, revealing desperation, and for the first time, she felt the tide turning. She continued, voice steady, "You've been living in a world of your own making, and I refuse to stay trapped in it." As she observed Tom, she felt something unearthed within her, empowerment. Her spirit surged not solely from confrontation but also from the knowledge that she didn't have to remain in the storm spawned by another's choices. But as clarity enveloped her like a shield, doubt lingered at the edge. Would Tom grasp the gravity of her words? Would he fight back? What would she do if he twisted the narrative again to ensnare her? Each moment lingered, alive with potential outcomes. As the air crackled with unspoken repercussions, Julie sensed the culmination of this exchange was merely the beginning of something larger, a journey toward reclaiming her autonomy. "What if I could show you the truth?" he finally mumbled, words laced with feigned sincerity. "And what if this is just the beginning of learning my own?" she countered, preparing for the steps she would take next. Her path had shifted, and she felt the resolve to walk it, regardless of what lay ahead. The weight of vulnerability transformed into the thrill of potential, and amid uncertainty, Julie intuited that the ultimate confrontation was yet to unfold, one that would clarify not just her relationship with Tom but expand into the realm of self-discovery she was now boldly committed to exploring. What unfolds from here? She thought, as his deception loomed large, a personal storm that she was ready to weather. Little did she realize the heart of her true journey lay still ahead, veiled under layers of uncharted emotion and self-realization. As Julie stood in the dim light of the room, the weight of her confrontation hung in the air, heavy with unspoken possibilities. Tom's hesitation was palpable. She could see the gears of his mind turning, optimizing his next move. In that moment, a shift occurred within her. The chaotic tug of fear and doubt began to dissolve, revealing a clearer sense of purpose. She was done with the emotional chess game he had orchestrated for far too long. With resolve stitching her fractured confidence, she decided that this moment was not simply a point of conflict, it was her passage into a new stage of existence. She needed an exit strategy, a plan for her future that wasn't contingent on his decisions. The knowledge that she was finally reclaiming her narrative surged within her. "Here's the reality," Julie began, her voice unwavering. "You think I'm going to stand here and subject myself to more deception? I'm done waiting for crumbs of honesty. I want to know the truth, and I want it now." Each word felt like a hammer striking a nail, securing the borders of her newly defined self. Tom's eyes darted, his mask of confidence slipping with every passing second. "You're being unreasonable," he retorted, his voice tinged with frustration. But she could hear the cracks in his armor, and that fueled her inner fire. "Unreasonable?" she echoed incredulously. "You mean choosing to prioritize my own truth over your comfort is unreasonable?" The realization crystallized. She was challenging the very foundation of their relationship. It was thrilling and terrifying at once, akin to standing atop a precipice, surveying the vast landscape of her life with newfound clarity. As he fumbled for words, she noticed the desperation creeping into his gaze, a telltale sign that he was losing control. For years she had allowed him to dictate the terms of their relationship, and she no longer wanted to be a bystander in her own life. The realization sent waves of strength coursing through her, bolstering her spirit. Deep within, memories crashed over her, reminders of her self-worth eroded by affection turned toxic. Those chapters of confusion and hurt were closing. She had the power to write a new story now. She no longer needed him to establish her value. "Here's the choice you have, Tom," she said, her voice steady as granite. "You can either explain the truth in full, no more half measures, no more lies, or I'll walk out that door and take control of my future without you. The decision is yours." There was a weight in her ultimatum, a declaration of war on the conflicted identity he had woven around her. Silence enveloped them like a thick fog, the air crackling with tension. Moments stretched on as he registered her words. Deep down, she prepared for the possibility that he might refuse to comply, but something in her chest flared, an ember of courage ignited from within. "Think about what your life would look like if you stood beside me instead of against me," he finally said, his voice softening, attempting to manipulate the narrative back into his favor. But she was not ready to succumb again. "There's power in the truth, but more in knowing my own worth. I will not be molded by your excuses any longer." The anxiety in her core was now a fierce determination. As she locked eyes with Tom, she saw not just the man she had once loved but a fragment of what he had become, a stranger whose options were rapidly dwindling. Her heart pounded, not from fear but from the exhilarating realization that she was embarking on a journey that was entirely her own. Julie stepped back, creating an emotional distance. "It's time for you to face the consequences of your actions. This is your chance to be accountable. For once, be honest with me." Now, she needed to strategize her next steps. With a clear vision for her future, she wasn't merely waiting for answers, she was preparing to reclaim her life. Yet the stakes were still high, and the journey promised emotional upheaval and confrontation. As uncertainty loomed, her heart raced, intertwining hope with trepidation. Will I truly learn the depths of his deception or find the strength to walk away? The door was ajar, a source of both liberation and an unknown confrontation beyond. What effects might this pivotal moment hold for her future? She braced herself for the unfolding layers of truth, ready to navigate the storm ahead. But would the truth, when revealed, lead her toward freedom or another form of bondage? The air crackled with a tension that felt like a living, breathing entity as Julie stood poised at the threshold of change. The dimly lit room around her receded in relevance, her focus sharpened by the gravity of her declaration. She was done playing Tom's games. This was a new beginning, one rooted in the undeniable truth of her own worth. As Tom's silence lingered, every second felt pregnant with possibility. This was a moment of reckoning, the very type she had yearned for. Yet, the path ahead remained uncharted, daunting in its uncertainty. Would he confront the truth head-on, or would he retreat into the shadows of his deception, leaving her to wrestle with remnants of their past? Julie felt the vibrant pulse of her determination surge anew, each beat echoing a promise to herself. The flicker of fear that had clung to her now ignited a sense of clarity. Each ounce of doubt that had once shackled her to Tom melted away, revealing layers of resilience she had scarcely acknowledged existed. Her thoughts drifted toward her aspirations, the dreams that had lingered like ghosts in the corners of her mind, muted by Tom's presence. No longer would her ambitions dim in the shadow of his insincerities. She envisioned advancing her career, envisioning herself in a role where her skills were recognized and appreciated, not dismissed under the weight of his dysfunction. What steps did she need to take? She wasn't just contemplating her escape, she was beginning to outline her future, a blueprint to rebuild her life on her terms. It was time to think strategically, to shape her own narrative, rather than be confined to the plot he had dictated for so long. "Julie?" Tom's voice broke through her thoughts, sounding more anxious now. There was no longer the authoritative tone she had grown accustomed to. It had been replaced by an edge of desperation. "You can't just leave like this." "Oh, but I can," she murmured, her own voice steady, firm. "I need to determine my own course. Your capacity for honesty from now on will dictate whether I stay or go." It felt empowering to assert this boundary, the wisps of shame and guilt from their past interactions fading with each resolute phrase. As she turned to leave, a nagging doubt edged at her mind. Was she truly ready to sever this tie? Walking away from an entity that had complexly intertwined with her sense of self was daunting. The fear of the unknown loomed, taunting her with potential regret, but she swallowed it down. What price had she paid to cling to him, to his blatant untruths? If she was to break free, every step would have to be firm and unyielding. The messy entanglements he had fostered in her psyche needed tearing away if she ever hoped to thrive in her own skin again. Her future depended not on the flickering shadows of a broken relationship but on the foundation of self-empowerment she planned to erect in its place. The door, once an exit shrouded in uncertainty, now represented much more. It was a passage into her own life, a reminder that she possessed agency. With a newfound focus, she resolved to rediscover her passions, perhaps even rekindle friendships abandoned in the tangle of his manipulation. As she opened the door, the fresh air swept in, invigorating her spirit with a promise of renewal. But as she crossed the threshold, a chilling thought gripped her. What if the truth, once unearthed, was more damaging than she anticipated? Had she bit off more than she could chew, challenging the very core of someone desperate to maintain his facade? Julie's heart raced at the implications as she stepped into the unknown, knowing that not only was she fighting for her own future, but she was also setting the stage for a confrontation that might expose dangerous truths. What would Tom reveal when cornered, and how would it shape the person she was becoming? Julie stepped out into the bustling street, the cacophony of sounds enveloping her like a reassuring cloak. The sun bathed her in warmth, and the vibrant colors of the city seemed to invigorate her sense of agency. She took a deep breath, filling her lungs with possibilities, but the thrill of newfound freedom was offset by a nagging apprehension at what lay ahead. As she walked, her mind churned with plans and possibilities. Her short jaunt to the local cafe morphed into a strategic retreat where the aroma of coffee blended with her aspirations. Sitting by the window, she pulled out her notebook. Each blank page represented uncharted territory, ripe for exploration. The words began to flow as she sketched a new vision of her career, one that blended her love for writing with her keen interest in human psychology. "This is it," she whispered to herself, glancing around to see if anyone witnessed her moment of self-affirmation. "I can blend these interests into a unique voice." Julie considered the prospect of writing a blog about her experiences, especially if it could help others grappling with manipulative relationships. Pouring out her thoughts, she outlined topics: emotional recovery, the pitfalls of toxic love, and her quest for self-discovery. The act of writing felt therapeutic, grounding her purpose amidst the instability. Despite the silence surrounding her, an internal dialogue raged on. Moving forward meant facing difficult decisions. Navigating the complexities of her relationship with Tom was one. She knew she had to confront not just him, but also the remnants of their past that still lingered in her psyche. The barista called her order, breaking her train of thought. Picking up her drink, she spotted a familiar face: Maggie, an old friend from her university days. Their paths had diverged since marriage, and Julie felt excitement tinged with anxiety. Would Maggie still accept her? "Julie!" Maggie's voice rang out, brimming with warmth. As they embraced, Julie felt an unfamiliar flicker of hope. "Can we talk?" Julie asked, a thin veneer of vulnerability exposed in her tone. They settled down at the table, and Julie revealed snippets of her recent life, her realizing her worth, her dreams boiling beneath the surface. Every vulnerable word shed a weight she had carried for too long. "I'm proud of you for standing up to him," Maggie said, her tone sincere but cautious. "But you've got to be careful. People like Tom don't always react well to losing control." The words hung between them, a solemn reminder of the battle ahead. Determined to push through her fear, Julie shifted the conversation. "Can we brainstorm some ideas? I want to create something meaningful, something that can inspire others." In that moment, they shared laughter and ideas as Julie felt the boundaries of her previous limitations widening. The conversation flowed seamlessly from writing hacks to personal dreams that sparkled anew in her mind. By the time the coffee cups had emptied, Julie was energized and fortified with plans of action. They agreed to meet regularly, a blend of personal and professional rebirth. But doubt still lingered, a whisper of uncertainty nagging at her core. What if she couldn't pull it off? What if Tom retaliated? She pushed the doubts aside, acknowledging that growth came with risk. Leaving the cafe, it was like stepping from one life into another. The road to self-discovery had begun, but she knew the confrontation with Tom was an imminent storm on the horizon. The thought shook her. What if he escalated his games, revealing darker truths? Julie felt a shudder of fear at the depths of his possible retaliation, but she squashed it down, reminding herself that she was not alone. She was beginning to construct a network of support, new connections leading to empowerment. As she reached her apartment, she paused at the door, her hand hovering on the doorknob. Uncertainty twisted in her gut again, but she inhaled deeply. The unknown awaited her. How would she face Tom when the confrontation inevitably came? Would the truths she uncovered reveal only pain, or would they liberate her entirely? She pushed the door open, stepping into the threshold of unfolding reality, ready for whatever was to come next. Julie sank onto her sofa, its familiar contours a stark contrast to the new path unfolding ahead. She could still feel a residue of tension coiling within her, remnants of the meeting with Maggie swirling in her mind like a storm ready to break. The excitement of brainstorming ideas sat uneasily with her dread of the shadows lurking in her past. She opened her laptop, fingers poised above the keys. This was her moment to translate chaos into clarity. What if she could curate her experiences into something both personal and powerful? As she navigated through her thoughts, a revelation sparked. This journey of self-discovery didn't just belong to her. Others needed to hear it too. Reading about emotional resilience could make a difference. It could be a beacon for those still trapped in darkness. With this realization came a flurry of ideas. Julie typed fervently, her words shifting from tentative outlines into declarations. Overcoming the fear of confrontation emerged as a potential first post, and she began drafting a plan that would center on empowering readers to confront their realities, much like she had begun to do. Halfway through her draft, the daylight waned, shadows creeping into her living room, prompting a sinking feeling within her. Would her voice resonate? What if she exposed wounds that were too raw to share? Each question acted like a somber reminder of Tom's influence, a voice echoing from the depths of their shared past. She flicked back to thoughts of those haunting moments, his laughter when she had expressed doubts, the harsh critiques masquerading as constructive feedback. Suddenly determined to strip away the power he held over her narrative, she pushed back against those negative thoughts. He doesn't own this story, she reminded herself, her fingers dancing across the keyboard once again. I have the right to tell my truth. As she typed, isolation transformed into inspiration, the blank screen no longer an abyss, but a canvas rich with potential. Yet another voice whispered in her mind, one cautioning her to consider her next dose of resistance. Tom was not unknown to manipulation. She recalled how he had attempted to bend reality to suit his whims. Would he even give her the chance to share her truth without retribution? A plan began to form, an escape route from her fears. Maybe she could use her writing for more than just expression. Perhaps blogging could serve as an armor, a way to shield herself while simultaneously bringing her story to the forefront. She could share interactions with Tom without naming him, disguising his identity while still speaking plainly about the effects of his actions. As she refocused, creating categories for the blog became essential: personal updates, advice pieces, stories from others, and discussions on recognizing emotional abuse. Julie felt a swelling of newfound confidence, encouraged and fortified by a flicker of bravery. Yet, a heavy sense of foreboding began to seep through. It was impossible to escape Tom's potential wrath. Her heart raced as she began to think strategically about the confrontation that lay ahead. Knowing she had to catch him unsuspecting, her mind ran through various scenarios. She weighed the options of direct confrontation versus a calculated withdrawal, fully aware that each interaction could escalate the situation. Deep down, she felt a pull, a battle between self-preservation and the instinct to confront. Was it possible to stand resilient without igniting Tom's volatility? Hours slipped by as she strategized, the laptop screen illuminating her calm, determined face, reflecting the shift from victim to victor. As the clock approached midnight, she closed her laptop and leaned back, her mind still whirling with possibilities, doubt seeping back in as she contemplated her next moves. But she couldn't afford to recoil now. Her very sense of self hinged on the decisions she would make. How would she navigate the confrontation? Would speaking her truth set her free or unleash a storm greater than she could imagine? The impending confrontation loomed. Her heart raced as she realized she had awakened a courage within, yet the true test remained ahead. Would she be ready for the battle to reclaim her identity? Julie's thoughts danced at the edge of clarity and chaos as she resolved to confront Tom. The writing she'd done that night had been liberating, yet she felt fragments of anxiety surging within her. The plan she'd sketched out on her notepad remained ever present. Each point was a step toward reclaiming not only her narrative but her life. The morning light streamed through her window, illuminating the remnants of doubt on her face. She rose early, the sun a welcome balm to her nerves, intending to ground herself before the day unfolded. The morning ritual of coffee brewing and the smell of toast became her anchor in turbulent waters. Each sip was a reminder of what she wanted to achieve not just for herself, but for others stuck in similar darkness. As she moved through the familiar motions of the morning, snippets of strategy floated to the surface. What would she say to Tom? How could she articulate the years of manipulation without losing her footing? The fire beneath her resolve intensified, igniting a sense of newfound agency. She couldn't let remnants of the past, his laughter, his dismissive words, wrap around her like suffocating vines. Julie had to grasp the reins firmly. She decided to begin with validation. "You're entitled to your perspective, Tom," she would say. It was a calculated strategy, allowing her to assert her narrative while also deflecting potential aggression. The acknowledgement of his view could serve to soften his defenses, opening a door to dialogue rather than conflict. With each passing minute, Julie visualized the unfolding confrontation, her pulse quickening at every possible scenario. Would Tom scoff at her courage? Would he turn the tables, accusing her of being ungrateful? But she had steeled herself. She was ready for his tactics. Catching him off guard required foresight, not just courage. She thought about how he loved to twist ordinary discussions into arguments, his irritation often palpable when he felt questioned. Setting herself up for success mentored a dual determination, to share her truth while remaining emotionally unyielding against his attempts at manipulation. She envisioned how she could angle the conversation, moving fluidly like a dancer, predicting his moves while keeping her own instincts sharp. Julie spent the rest of her morning drafting notes to keep herself focused, a clear outline of points she aimed to address. She jotted down moments from their past that illustrated the harsh realities of emotional abuse, noting specifically how they had impacted her. In focusing on her pain, she solidified her resolve to share these experiences as a reflection of her growth rather than her failure. But doubts still nagged. Each note reminded her of how easily Tom could hijack her narrative, turning the meeting into another reflection of his twisted sense of control. The potential for fists to fly, words to slice, set off alarms within her gut. Despite the shadows of fear, she pulled strength from the blog she was constructing, holding fast to the belief that sharing her story could empower others to rethink their circumstances. As she closed the notebook, the time to confront was drawing near, and her heart raced with uncertainty. Yet, for every muscle that tensed in anxiety, one swelled with effort and growth. She was on the verge of carving out a space for herself, a realm where remorse no longer dictated her choices. Driving to their meeting place, Julie rehearsed snippets of dialogue, each repetition forging more strength. She noticed a shift. The desperation began ebbing away, replaced by an unshakable belief in her narrative. She was ready. Just outside the cafe, a familiar tension lingered in the air, each breath flooding her with determination. The moment had arrived, and right on cue, Tom appeared, his demeanor deceptively casual. In that instant, something within her crystallized. This would be a conversation unlike any other they'd shared. As they locked eyes, she felt the weight of anticipation deepen. The stakes had never been higher. Would this be a breakthrough moment, or merely another chapter in the saga of their troubled past? The answer loomed like a shadow behind her, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. What awaited her in the depths of their coming confrontation? Julie sat across from Tom, trying to keep her expression neutral while a tempest brewed beneath the surface. The cafe bustled around them, yet their small table felt like an isolated island in a sea of life, poised on the verge of a storm. She glanced at him, a man she once knew intimately, now a stranger wrapped in layers of deceit. The casual demeanor he wore masked a much larger confrontation, and she steeled herself for what was to come. "Thanks for meeting me," she opened, a calculated calmness guiding her tone. His eyes flickered with a mix of curiosity and guardedness. We need to talk about what has been happening, Tom. About everything. He looked down, a subtle shift in his posture. I don't know what you mean, Julie. Oh, but she did. This was the moment where clarity would dismantle the fortress of lies built around their relationship. I know about the texts. The calls. The life you've been living beyond our marriage. Each statement cut through the air, sharp and unyielding. Tom's face changed, shock washing over him as the magnitude of her words settled in. You're overreacting. This is all a misunderstanding. No, Tom, it's not, she countered, her voice steady, an anchor amidst the storms swirling within. This isn't just a misunderstanding, it's betrayal, and it's time you acknowledge that. He flinched at her words, the once polished facade cracking. You don't understand the pressure I've been under. Maybe, she retorted, but let's stop making excuses for your actions. Your choices have consequences. Our children deserve the truth. I deserve the truth. The weight of her declaration hung thick in the air, and she felt the adrenaline surge, propelling her commitment forward. This was about more than merely confronting Tom. It was about reclaiming her voice, her narrative, her future. Tom shifted in his seat, visibly uncomfortable. I never wanted to hurt you, Julie. You've already hurt me, and you've hurt our children, she replied, every word a step toward reclaiming the woman she had lost sight of. This isn't about just us anymore. Silence enveloped them as the reality of their situation began to settle in. Julie took a deep breath. I refuse to be a participant in your lies or a captive in your deception any longer. In that moment, a flicker of recognition in Tom's eyes suggested he grasped the severity of the situation that had unfolded. Julie seized the opportunity. I am done being defined by your choices. She reached into her bag and pulled forth the carefully organized documentation of his betrayal, each piece representing her metamorphosis from a passive partner to an empowered individual reclaiming her story. His composure faltered as she laid out the evidence, staring at the files with a mixture of disbelief and dread. Julie, you can't. Why? She interrupted, raising her voice just enough to confirm her ground. Why should I keep silent about your lies, Tom? Because you don't want to face the reality of the choices you made? She didn't need an answer. The fear that once tethered her began to dissolve, replaced by a surge of unexpected confidence. I'm filing for divorce, she declared, her voice ringing out as if to detach her from the weight of the past. The truth resonated within her, echoing with clarity. I'm going to seek what's right for our children and for myself. Tom's eyes widened, the facade of confidence collapsing before her. Her conviction surged, and she felt lighter, no longer encumbered by guilt or regret. She rose to face this new reality, offering a final affirmation, I deserve more, and my kids do too. As she walked out of the cafe, each step became a celebration of her liberation. She found solace in the integrity she had reclaimed. No longer would she allow external chaos to dictate her internal peace. Outside, the day seemed to shimmer brighter. The air was scented with new beginnings. Julie located her car, heart fluttering with hope and resolution. This moment marked the start of her new journey, unshackled from betrayal and poised on a path leading to fulfillment. Now, with a renewed sense of purpose, she envisioned the blog that would one day connect with others on paths of resilience, ready to explore the tumultuous waters of emotional recovery. This was her fresh narrative, a story of transformation from victimhood to empowerment. In that undeniable rush of personal triumph, her confidence solidified. Julie was not defined by her past, she was defined by the choices she made moving forward. Now she was in control, ready to conquer life with a steadiness she had never known before. You need to subscribe now to stay updated with the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support is crucial. Comment below with your reactions and theories about this conclusion. You don't want to miss the conversation. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful journey. Don't wait even one more second to inspire others. Your support matters deeply in spreading the message of empowerment and resilience.